The internet has gotten a little too comfortable with me because on one end I'm being called grandma and on the other end I'm not old enough to have experienced 9/11. And it's this video in particular that garnered up a little controversy. Listen.
Things you didn't know about the September 11th tragedy, part 6. Number 32, World Trade Center 7 collapsed completely at freefall speed 5 hours and 22 minutes after the World Trade Centers had collapsed. Most people didn't realize this happened because they were so overwhelmed with the Pentagon, Flight 93, and just the day as a whole. But this building also held a lot of files for the CIA, the FBI, and a lot of different files that were actually being investigated. Now, I'm not saying that it fell for any reason other than debris, but a lot of engineers say that this building shouldn't have fallen at free fall speed.
Well, what if it didn't happen like that? Because I was in Midtown Manhattan working in news when 9/11 happened. And I specifically remember Building 7 being intentionally demolished because it was so damaged, and it happened later that day. And I was 26 at the time, so it's not like I was 10 years old and my memories were faulty. And for years, I have been seeing this talk of Building 7 coming down on its own because it was damaged or fire or something, and not that it was intentionally demolished. So last night, I reached out to someone that I used to work with who was also there until 9 p.m. like I was that day. And he also remembers it being a planned demolition and not that it just fell. And again, I was working in news, so you had to be very specific about things. And so I don't know why they would lie about how it came down if they brought it down anyway. But for years, I have wanted to find out if there are other people out there that remember it being intentionally demolished, specifically people in news, because that's who would have been paying attention that day. Okay, that is the 100% truth. I, for years, have wanted to reach out, and for one reason or another, I never did it. I never remembered about it. I would forget about it. The second I would think, okay, I want to reach out to this person, I want to reach out to that person, I would just forget. It's not a big deal, and it's not controversial. My memories are not controversial. And I want to unpack a couple of different things for this particular video because first, that's all it was. I wanted to find out, I saw his video and I wanted to find out if perhaps other people remembered it the way I did. And I very specifically remember people saying, okay, people in news, okay, saying this building is going to come down, it's too damaged. And then once it came down, I remember having to update something because someone said, okay, they brought it down. That's what I remember. And so, of course, people are calling me a conspiracy theorist and all these different things, but my memories are not a conspiracy. And then on the other hand, I'm being told to Google things. I don't know how to Google my own memories. This is exactly what I remember, which is why I reached out to people that I worked with that specific day in that same newsroom. And yes, they remember it like that too. And for people on the internet to come and tell me that I'm wrong about what I'm remembering, I'm being a conspiracy theorist, these are my memories. And the reason I made the video was not to make it content or part of my content. It was legitimately to see if other people that day, particularly in news, like I said at the end of the video, remembered it the way I did. And so there was no real controversy behind that. The guy who made the video, Bixby Films, the one who made the video, he's entitled to research and form his own opinion. Now, there is something else I want to unpack in this video. I received this comment. I have a hard time with people who weren't born or too young to comprehend what that day was like. I just wanted to cut in for a second with this picture because I forgot it existed. This is me a couple of days after 9/11, just blocks away from the World Trade Center site at St. Paul's Chapel, which acted as a resting site for rescue workers. In any case, this picture has a lot to do with the comment I'm reading, so I'll restart the comment I was reading from the beginning. I have a hard time with people who weren't born or too young to comprehend what that day was like, trying to be the armchair experts and conspiracy theorists. I mean, the building was on fire and took a hit from all debris. A building can't take getting hit with debris and probably jet fuel, that plus to be on fire and be structurally okay. Completely understandable. But if my memories are serving me something different, along with the memories of other people that were in that newsroom with me on 9/11 in Midtown Manhattan, I'm going to question it. And it's okay to ask questions. And if I'm thinking that perhaps my memory isn't serving me well, then I'm going to ask other people about it. In any case, back to this comment. I had people on the internet calling me grandma because I don't even remember why, but they were calling me grandma because they weren't agreeing with what I was saying. Fine. I'm 51 years old. Sure. Then I have people who didn't even finish watching the video, and that's obvious because I was 26 years old. I was working in news and I was in Midtown Manhattan. I remember what that day was like. Now, the other issue that I kind of have with this particular comment is young people are allowed to do research and form their opinions. And I kind of think that just brushing off what younger people think or have opinions on doesn't serve anyone. Young people can also do research and speak to different people that were there that day and form their own opinions. They have access to the internet. They have access to documents. They have access to news articles, video footage. And so it's okay for them to do their own research. Furthermore, it's hard to kind of discredit people for what their experience is because I don't know if that commenter was even in Manhattan when that happened. I don't know if they knew what the city was like during 9/11. So I could easily discredit them, but I can't discredit what they went through if they experienced 9/11 also. Someone who was closer to the Twin Towers can discredit what I was feeling. So I just think that at that point, it becomes about one-upping each other. And so then what do we accomplish there when we're just one-upping each other? No, my experience was better. No, my experience was better. No, I was closer. My experience was better. It just doesn't make sense. In addition to that, I think us older people maybe our judgment or experience was a little skewed because we did experience that day with full force. We are emotionally tied to what happened that day. There were times, and just because of the video footage, that I would hear a low-flying airplane and trauma would come back from that day. So we are emotionally tied to what happened that day, where it's harder for us to zoom out and maybe pick apart the things that happened that day, or allow some of our memories to come back. But a lot of us don't like feeling what we felt like that day. And so whenever we remember it, or we try to remember it, or we see video footage, or we hear things that were on the radio, it all comes rushing back. We start feeling everything we felt that day. So we're more emotionally tied, where it's harder for us to kind of look at the grand scheme of things, to kind of just zoom out or separate. It's fair to judge people who were not there. I mean, there are historians that tie themselves to something that happened. I just don't think it's fair for people to discredit what young people feel because they can look at things with less judgment, with less trauma, with less emotion. They were not there, so it's easier for them to kind of pick things apart without being emotionally tied to it. And they also help by giving us a different perspective. If their emotions are not tied to that day, they have a different perspective, and we shouldn't be discrediting it. And if we want to discredit people who were not there that day because they weren't there, they don't know what it was like, historians would not exist. What would we do without historians? And also, if they're looking through files and they're talking about how engineers say that it was rare that a building like that or a building like that had never fallen like that, what does that have to do with being there that day? Absolutely nothing. And asking questions the way I did because my memory was completely different than what I have been hearing for years, I shouldn't be flagged as a conspiracy theorist. I shouldn't be judged for asking questions because I think that we should all be asking more questions.